Good evening and welcome everybody. Thanks for taking the time out of your night to join us for this informational session. This is an informational session for Enbridge Energy, Line 5, straight to Mackinac, for an EGLE application received. So an application received by EGLE for an Enbridge under Part 301 and 325 of the NREPA. My name is Ryan Blazek. I'm with EGLE's Environmental Support Division. I'm just going to be your moderator for tonight's hearing. So I have a few things to go through before we get into the informational session and Q&A. This is the agenda of what we're looking at tonight. We're starting off with an introduction. That's what we're doing right now. Then we're going to move into the informational session. What that will consist of is we're going to start with EGLE presenting information that they received on the application related to the project. And then we'll follow it up with a question and answer session. So that's you'll have an opportunity to ask questions related to the project and the application. One thing I just want to keep in mind is that this isn't the official hearing. The official hearing is going to be next week on August 19th, and we'll be providing the information for that in the chat so you have it. But we will not be taking testimony or comments today related to this application. This is strictly going to be an informational session. However, if you do want to submit a comment, there's a number of ways that you can do so until then. You can send a comment through our My Enviro portal, through Submission HQ3 8BYB-N or not N9DT1. That's HQ3 8BYB-N9DT1. I'm just reading these out pretty closely just because we may have some people who are on the phone listening in. And we'll put this link in the chat or by EGLE or by email to EGLE, EGLE-Enbridge-public comments at michigan.gov. And so that's EGLE-enbridge-public-comments at michigan.gov. Or by mail to EGLE, GRDO-WRD, and that's P.O. Box 30458, Lansing, Michigan 48909-7958. And again, you can also provide comments at that virtual public hearing, which is going to be on August 19th. And so there's a number of ways you can provide a comment until then, or please join us for the August 19th hearing. A couple things for the informational session tonight. All lines are going to be muted during the session. So you'll be able to hear us, but we can't hear you. And you can submit your questions at any time using the Q&A box in your Zoom toolbar that you see at the bottom of the screen. However, I should mention that when we get to the question and answer session, you will be able to ask a question verbally or typing it into the Q&A box, and we'll explain how we're going to run that Q&A session a little bit later on. Also, just want to make sure you're aware we are recording this session. The session will be captioned and put on our YouTube channel in a couple days, so you'll be able to access it and can watch it again or forward it on if you wish to. All right, at this point, I would like to invite our other EGLE staff who are on the line to turn their cameras on and introduce themselves.
Yeah, hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jared Sanders. I am the director in EGLE's Water Resources Division, so the part of the organization that is considering this permit application.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Kyle Alexander. I'm the Field Operations Section Manager for Water Resource Division, working closely with Joe Haas and John Walt.
Hello, I'm Ann Garwood. I am Supervisor of the Wetlands, Lakes and Streams Unit in Water Resources Division. Our unit is a technical unit that provides program development and support to all the district staff, including those reviewing this project.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Joe Haas, the District Supervisor with Water Resources Division in the Gaylord Field Office. Our office is handling this processing of this permit application.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tarek Buckmaster, and I supervise the Industrial Permits Unit in Permit Section in the Water Resources Division. And our unit is responsible for issuing the NPDES permit for the facility.
Hi, my name is Hannah Schroeder-Larkins. I am a permit writer in the Industrial Permit Unit as part of the Water Resources Division, and I'll be responsible for drafting the NPDES permit.
Good evening, everybody. My name is John Walt. I am the file manager charged with reviewing the permit application for the Enbridge application in the Wetlands Protection Act and the Great Lakes Bottomlands that we're going to be talking about today. So I'll also be talking through the application a little bit. Ryan, if we could progress to the next slide and get started.
Sounds good. Last thing I'll mention before you begin, it looks like we have about 84 people, participants, participating on the call today, just so everybody is aware. And I have your slides, and just let me know.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Just going to start out with the numbers of what we're reviewing for here. So we have two different laws that Enbridge has proposed impacts within. The first one is impacts for Part 303, that is the Wetlands Protection Act. All of the impacts proposed under Part 303 is in Mackinac County on Point LaBarbe. This is on the north side of the straits. The area, the limits of disturbance is 1.53 acres of wetland filling, grading, and constructing. The purpose of this wetland impact is for building, construction laydown areas, the tunnel portal construction, road improvements, and operational needs following the construction. So this is all on the north side and consists of both some impacts that shift throughout the construction period of what's being used and what's not, and then also permanent infrastructure following the proposed construction of the tunnel. Proposed impacts under Part 325. This is the Great Lakes Bottomlands statute. This is in Emmet County on McGulpin Point, which is the south side of the Straits of Mackinac. The total bottomland occupation proposed is 0.017 acres. So that's 800 square feet for maybe a more understandable number and dimension there. This is the construction of the water intake structure, including concrete ballasts and some pipe as well placed on the bottomlands. This water intake structure is for water used during the construction, the proposed construction of the tunnel. This is proposed to be removed following the construction, possible construction of a tunnel. But we are reviewing it as an impact that will at least be on the bottomlands for the duration of that construction. Spoils disposal is proposed throughout 3 counties, Sheboygan, Emmet, and Mackinac counties. But these areas have been reviewed and are not regulated under the Water Resources Division sections of the Natural Resources Environmental Protection Act. Ryan, next slide, please. Perfect, thank you. This is a bit of an overview of what exists in the Straits of Mackinac. So this, you can see that there's the Mackinac Bridge crossing on the east side and under the surface of Lake Michigan on the west. There are twin pipelines that do exist on the bottom of the lake as it is. These are two 20-inch pipelines that Enbridge operates. On the north side, you can see in blue the North Straits facility, and we'll get into more detail there. That is where the wetland impacts are proposed to be. And on the south is the Mackinac station that is proposed, where the water intake structure that we're reviewing will be. There is a red line that is visible between these or over top of these existing pipelines. That's actually the proposed tunnel alignment. So this does show the proposed alignment of the tunnels in comparison to where the existing pipelines are. Next slide, please. So the application, the purpose of the application is for the facilitation of the construction of a tunnel beneath the bottomlands of Lake Michigan. So right here is just 2 images. The top one is the alignment of the tunnel as seen from overhead, similar to what was shown in the previous slide. And then the image on the bottom is the proposed cross section of the tunnel going from the south to the north. And so the project is for the purpose of constructing this tunnel and placing line 5 into the tunnel. Ryan, next slide, please. This is on the north end. So this is just an overview of the limits of disturbance on the north. The yellow line just indicates where there is proposed construction or filling, grading, operational building construction, so on. So this just shows the overall footprint of disturbance that is proposed on the north end. If we could go to the next slide, please. This is the limits of disturbance, that yellow line again on the north side, and it overlays the wetlands that have been identified within the area. So there are wetlands here that fall outside of the limits of disturbance, and then within it there are the 1.53 acres of wetlands that are proposed to be impacted. So this gives an idea of where those wetlands are located, their shape, their size, and how the limits of disturbance falls within relation to those wetlands and the ones surrounding it. Next slide, please. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I might have lagged behind there. Hopefully everybody can hear me. This is the limits of disturbance again on the north, and this slide and the next couple will show how there is proposed construction and how things will move around within that limit of disturbance, just showing the various phases. So this is the tunnel retrieval phase, in which on the north side, the boring machine is proposed to be extracted after constructing the tunnel, and shows just what the layout of the area would be during the tunnel retrieval phase. If we could go to the next slide as well. This is the installation phase of the pipe, and so this would be after the tunnel is constructed, having line 5 running through that tunnel. This is the proposed layout of the installation phase of that pipe, and so it is different throughout the construction here of what spaces are being used for various activities, but these images show the differences as the construction goes on. And finally, the next slide for the north side. This would be the operational layout. So following all construction, what the layout of buildings and roads would be within the limits of disturbance. And do please note that the purple, the legend is a little bit hard to see there, but the purple would indicate revegetated areas. But this is the operational layout within that area following construction. So this is essentially the proposed impacts for all wetlands in this project. Again, the 1.53 acres that we're reviewing for. Next slide. Now we're on the south side. So on the south side here, we have, again, the limits of disturbance in yellow. These limits of disturbance, there are no wetlands proposed here, so we'll show some of the similar slides, but do note that we're going to be focusing mainly on the water intake structure. Ryan, if we could go to the next slide. This is the footprint of the water intake structure that is proposed out into the lake. The disturbance of the structure itself, it's proposed to be about 300 square feet for the actual intake, and then the pipe that brings the water to the construction site, along with concrete ballasts that are proposed to weigh that pipe to the bottom. It's about 500 square feet. So again, this amounts to 0.017 acres or 800 square foot of bottomland occupation. The remainder of that pipe is proposed to be beneath the bottomlands through horizontal directional drilling. And then it's not that bottomland occupation. If we could go to the next slide, please. As a cross section, here we have on the south side what that water intake looks like from the side, particularly noting the dashed line is the bottomlands of Lake Michigan, in that the pipe is proposed, the intake pipe is proposed to be horizontally directionally drilled for a majority of the length before coming out through the bottom of the lake and having that bit of pipe and the intake structure resting on the bottom. Next slide, please. This is an example of what the intake structure looks like from the cross and overhead. Again, this would be about 300 square foot attached with a pipe, and you can see some concrete ballast and the concrete pad that this would be sitting on. So as an example and an idea of what this may look like as an intake structure. Next slide. This hopefully can clarify a bit of this image here. This is the plan for controlling turbidity, particularly when the horizontal directional drill would break through the bottom of the lake. There is proposed turbidity containment with a barge that would have a curtain, multiple curtains surrounding it so as to contain all the turbidity and provide more precise control of any sediment that might be kicked up, along with operational controls are also proposed, and monitoring and being sure it's proposed that they would know, Enbridge would know when this would be going through the bottom of the lake. And so there is turbidity control plans proposed within this application for the water intake structure. Next slide, please, Ryan. Here is similar to what I showed on the north side, except we're now on the south side. This is the tunnel retrieval phase during the construction of the tunnel, which is proposed. Again, there are no wetlands proposed here. So the only regulatory feature that we are reviewing is that water intake structure to the north that goes out into the lake. Next slide, Ryan. Similar water intake structure would still be present during the pipeline installation phase. And so it would be present throughout the entirety of the construction of the tunnel and the installation of the pipe within the tunnel. It is proposed to be there for the duration of that time. Next slide, please, Ryan. And then finally, we have similar, the operational layout and the permanent footprint of what's proposed on the south side. Do please note that the intake structure is not present here. It is proposed to be completely removed from the bottomlands of that entire pipe and the ballast, weighing it down on the bottomlands and the intake structure following the construction. So there is no further impact following construction once that would be removed. Next slide, please, Ryan. We just want to point out that there are areas where the spoils and the material from the tunnel construction are proposed to go. On the north side, there are two locations that are northeast of the North Straits facility, which you can see in the bottom left corner is the North Straits facility. So northeast, there are two locations proposed. Neither of these locations have any 301 inland lakes and streams or wetlands protection, floodplains, so forth, impacts proposed. And so we know where the spoils are proposed to go, and there's no regulation from the Water Resources Division under this application. Next slide. Similar on the south side, there are spoils locations within Emmet County, which very similar story again has been reviewed, and under this application there is no proposed impact. Next slide, Ryan. Finally, on this, we are in Sheboygan County, so there are also next to I-75 here. Spoils are proposed to be placed here, and again has been reviewed, and we know that there's spoils being placed here, but under the statutes we're reviewing for, there is no impact proposed. Next slide, please. These this slide and the following slide will just have some images that were provided by Enbridge for visualization purposes only, just to get an idea of what the proposed project may look like permanently from the lake, from if you're on Lake Michigan. So on the left is what's existing, and on the right is how the landscape view might change for the South Station in Emmet County. Next slide, please. On the north side, very similar. These images are just conceptual images provided by Enbridge, with on the left is what exists currently in Mackinac County, and on the right is the final operation layout that is proposed, a conceptual drawing of that. Next slide, please, Ryan. Yeah, so that ends the presentation for what EGLE is reviewing under this application. There are some Enbridge Energy representatives here as well, in case there are questions that EGLE is not suited to answer. Specifically, there's Gina Lee, Joe McGaver, and then Paul Meneghini. And so throughout the question and answer, if appropriate, we may refer to the Enbridge representatives to answer portions of the questions if they choose to.
All right, thanks for the information, John. Yeah, some good info there for everybody. We're going to move right into the Q&A session, like you had mentioned. I just want to let folks know how we're going to do this and how to ask a question. There's a couple different ways. You can either submit your question using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, so you should see a Q&A box at the bottom, or you can click the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen. So what you're going to do is click that. That'll raise your hand in Zoom, and we'll call on you, and then we'll unmute you. You can unmute yourself, and then you can ask your question verbally or out loud. Or if there's anybody calling in by phone, you can also ask a question out loud verbally by selecting #2 on your receiver. And what that'll do is that'll raise your hand in Zoom, and then we'll call on you using the last 4 digits of your phone number, and then you'll have an opportunity to ask your question. Last thing I want to remind you of, that this is a question and answer session. We're not taking statements or comments related to this application tonight. That'll be at the public hearing, which is next week. So please be as concise as you can with your questions if you're asking them out loud. And so I'll just kind of go back and forth between the raised hands and the people who type something in the Q&A box, and then we'll go from there and get to as many as we can. All right, so the first question I have is, why aren't all of the impacted bottomlands along the 4 miles of tunneling considered, even though Enbridge only mentions the less than 1 acre as part of the requested permit? Wouldn't construction necessarily disturb the lake bed?
I can take that one, Ryan. I think they mean, why aren't they being considered under 325? So that's right. Under our current review and in consultation with our council, we're not requiring that the portions of the tunnel that fall below bottomlands or within the bedrock be counted in the JPA as Part 325 impacts. There are other parts of the project that do trigger review under Part 325. So the project still needs to meet all of the statutory criteria of 325 before a permit could be issued, and this would include considerations like alternatives, et cetera.
All right, thank you, Kyle. Another one, what's the timeline for application, final review, and decision? And then who is the final arbitrator?
Perfect, thank you. So right now the timeline is that this public notice will end on August 29. Following that, it's likely that we'll have some additional information due to everybody's comments that we'll request from the applicant. Currently, the processing due date by which EGLE would make a decision is December 13 of this year. It is possible that we can grant extensions as need be, as we get more information and possible more review. But currently December 13 of 2025 is the processing due date. EGLE, we operate as a team, and so everybody that you see on this panel and more do consult together for the decision making, but EGLE Water Resources Division is the authority that would be making the decision on the permit.
All right. Yeah, thanks, John. All right, next question. I should mention, I'm going to try to skip around to make sure everybody, we at least get to everybody's questions. So if you have more than one in there, please be patient until we get to some other people and come back to you. How does Enbridge plan to safely abandon the existing line once the tunnel is complete?
So right now, the proposal considers a couple of different options, including what's called abandoning in place, in which the existing tunnel would be cleaned and capped, which would be a concrete plug within the pipeline, and then potentially left in place. We still have discussion to have about further potentials for removal or leaving in place as we're still in the processing timeframe. We haven't come to any decisions on what is to be done for permitting this or following conditions of tunnel pipeline removal or not.
Yeah, so John, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not part of the application that's in front of us right now, right? So
Correct.
that is part of the agreement that Enbridge made with Michigan several years ago now. So to be determined on that, and we'll continue to work with them. But that is, the removal is not part of what is being considered under this application.
Correct, right. Thanks, Jared. Yeah, absolutely. Perfect.
All right, thank you both. What is the disaster recovery plan in the event that Line 5 bursts before the tunnel is fully operational?
I might defer to others on the call, whether that's Kyle or somebody from Enbridge who might have an idea of what the plan is.
Yeah, I think the question, if I'm understanding the question, is what would happen today if the line were to burst. So I don't know if someone from Enbridge would want to tackle that and explain what their response would be.
All right, so we should have unmuted our Enbridge representatives. If one of you has anything to add.
Yeah, Ryan, just a mic check before I respond. This is Paul with Enbridge.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. Yeah, again, this is Paul Managini with Enbridge. Again, as we continue to operate Line 5, we have what we refer to as contingency plans in place, of course, to respond to any leak with anything in the straits and well beyond the straits. So we are, have very detailed, we have emergency response equipment as an example stationed on both the north sides and the south sides. All of our employees local and we're on call oil spill response organizations will quickly and rapidly respond to prevent as much impact as we could if there was a leak there. Thank you.
All right, thank you. What are they going to do with the rest of the tunnel that is also 72 years old? We're still only talking about the 4-mile section. A leak anywhere would get into the Great Lakes.
Yeah, so I believe talking about the rest of the Line 5 pipeline that exists going through the UP and down through the Lower Peninsula. This application doesn't review for any other sections of that pipeline. So my understanding of it is limited. Enbridge, if you would like to briefly comment on the rest of the pipeline running through the state.
Sure, thanks, John. Again, this is Paul with Enbridge. Line 5 is regulated by the Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration. So all of the inline inspections, emergency response, quality of the pipeline is again audited and checked by our federal regulator because it's an interstate commerce and an international pipeline in the case of Line 5. So again, Line 5 continues to be very safe operating pipeline for all of its approximately 645 miles been superior to setting on total.
All right. Thank you both for that question, for answering that question. Another one, let's see here. Oh, I'm particularly wondering about pollutants that might leach from the work site and the spoils laid down sites to neighboring areas. What measures are taken for that if they are factored in?
Tarek, do you want to try and answer that question? We might have to repeat it, Ryan, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. It says, I am particularly wondering about the pollutants that might leach from the work site and the spoils laid down sites to neighboring areas. What measures are taken for that if they are factored in?
So we're also evaluating the application for the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit. That'll be applicable to any discharges of wastewater into the surface waters of the state related to the construction project, and then later, once complete, related to the infiltration of any stormwater or groundwater into the tunnel. So they have containment areas that they'll be using as part of the drilling process, and there would not be any expectation of any materials leaching off the site. That should be fully contained and treated prior to discharge.
All right, thank you, Tarek. I think we're going to go to a couple raised hands that we have now. So Nicole Kiwe-Bieber, we are going to unmute you and you can ask your question.
Hi, it's Bieber. So I'm wondering, you just mentioned like the discharge and this, that. I don't know if that's this permit. I think it might be, but I'm just wondering specifically about the effects of bentonite on fish. I don't see that there's any articulated plan about not having that be part of the 5 million gallon slurry that's going to be, you know, put into the lakes as part of construction proposal. So what about that bentonite and how it can coat the gills of fish and is just a really toxic substance?
Yeah, hi Nicole. I can go first here and then maybe let our other National Pollutant Discharge folks answer. So as I maybe briefly mentioned, is that the bentonite from the horizontal directional drilling with the water intake structure, there is proposed to be containment of that. Any bentonite that would be released with turbidity curtains and monitoring. And so it is something that this application does consider broadly in terms of minimizing those possible releases as much as possible. Hannah or Tarek, I don't know if there is more to add from your side in terms of bentonite in this proposal.
Yes, so that is part of the review for the NPDES permit application and will be addressed in the NPDES permit. It is going to be used on the site and controlled, and we will have toxicity limits in place, total suspended solids limits in place to make sure that that discharge of treated wastewater is controlled to limit the discharge of bentonite back into the surface waters.
All right. Thank you for your question, Nicole. All right. Next up is Gene Jackman. Gene, we are going to unmute you, and then you'll be able to unmute yourself and you can ask your question. All right. Looks like you're unmuted on our end, Gene.
All right. Will there be a written version of this session available?
We will be providing a recording, but we will not have a transcription, if that's what the question is. Okay,
and how will we access or share that recording with people?
The recording will be captioned and posted on EGLE's YouTube channel. So you can go to EGLE's YouTube channel, and there's a category for public hearings, and you'll be able to find it there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. All right, let's see here. Another raised hand. We'll go with one more raised hand, and then we'll go back to the question and answer box. Debbie Chizuer. Debbie, we are going to unmute you. You're unmuted on our end, and then you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Are you there, Debbie?
Yep, that was an accidental hand raise. Sorry.
Okay, yep, no problem. All right. All right, will the construction increase, again, going back to the Q&A boxes, will the construction increase the risk of an oil spill from the pipeline by disturbing it, or if an accident during construction occurs? Have the chances of this been calculated or considered?
Yeah, we'll let Enbridge, if they want, answer that one, as it's partly what they consider in their operations.
Sure, thanks, Jim. And again, this is Paul with Enbridge. Good question. We do receive that a lot. Again, there'll be a very highly monitored operations which makes its way across the Straits of Mackinac. So at this time, based on all of our engineering and studies and modeling of any type of minor vibration that the tunnel boring machine might take, we don't believe it will cause any impact at all on existing pipelines.
All right. Thank you for the question and for providing that answer. All right. What type of technology is proposed for the drilling of the tunnel?
Yeah, Paul, I'll let you answer some of that. It is called a tunnel boring machine, so we have seen some of the drawings of this for EGLE, but again, that being mostly out of our review, Paul, or others from Enbridge, if you would like to answer.
Yeah, I'll just ask, Paul, your mic was breaking up a bit on that last question, so.
How's that? Do you have a microphone, Sean? Can you hear me?
Yeah, say it again.
Can you hear me? Is my mic working now?
It's a little muffled, but we can hear you.
I apologize. Again, so the question, as I took it, was how do you build a tunnel? Again, so it really started back in 2018 with a very detailed geological investigation in the Straits to really understand the ground type, if you will, beneath the Straits in order to feed the design of the actual machine which will cross the Straits. So again, we have, as a result of that geotechnical information, we then committed to a contractor to build the tunnel. We feel we have really a world-class team on board to design and eventually construct the Great Lakes Tunnel project. As an example, our two contractors have built over 100 tunnels together, totaling almost 400 miles in length. So we really do feel like we have the best of the best engaged on this project, and really it's a worldwide team of experts. The tunnel machine itself, we refer to, or people in the tunneling industry, I should say, refer to as a pressurized tunnel boring machine. So essentially, maybe the best way to visualize it is kind of like a giant earthworm, if you will, where there's a cutter head at the front of the machine that slowly circulates, slowly turns. And then this bentonite slurry that others have talked about before really provides a constant pressure to the rock face as the machine slowly moves forward and supports any type of ground or water pressure from above. As the machine slowly moves forward, we will have precast concrete tunnel liner segments, which will be brought in, again, from the south side where the machine itself will be launched. And these tunnel boring segments will essentially be put together in a complete circle or a ring. And that will essentially move forward, if you will, over time as the machine makes its way from the south side to the north side. Couple other highlights, really tunnels are designed and constructed all over the world and are really inherently stable structures, especially ground tunnels. Tunnels can remain in service for decades, and we have several of them. Even in Michigan, we've got a couple. So again, once it's in the ground, it'll be very detailed integrity program, rigorous inspections to make sure that the tunnel is designing as appropriate, and any O&M that is necessary will be carried forward. Again, the tunnel will be all work and operations and maintenance, and the tunnel will be coordinated with the Mackinac Straits Port Authority, who's been developed by the state legislature back in 2018 to kind of oversee the design, the construction, the specifications, and the eventual operations and maintenance of the tunnel. And again, maybe just the most important thing, another question that we do get asked commonly is Enbridge is responsible for all costs associated with construction of the tunnel, so these are not public taxpayer dollars. Thank you.
All right, thank you both for providing that information. Next question. Independent experts have warned the bedrock where the tunnel will be constructed is unstable. One has said that it's the worst rock he's ever seen anyone think about putting a tunnel in. Question is, why hasn't a complete geotechnical study been done? And shouldn't that be required for a project of this magnitude?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So we do have some of the material there from what Paul was just referencing back in 2017, 2018, during which geotechnical studies were conducted, and then Michigan Department of Transportation engineers did review that back in 2020 or 2019 as well. And so studies have been done in terms of the bedrock that's actually there. If Enbridge would like to speak regarding that, again, the tunnel is currently not under the review of Part 325. And so it's a question a bit outside of the purview of this application.
Yeah, this is Paul with Enbridge again. I really think that the geotechnical data that we've gathered really is sufficient to provide adequate information for experts to characterize the geologic formations under the straits. We've got a world-leading team. We feel that the conditions are known, and again, the type of machine that we have specified and will make its way across the straits can handle any type of conditions encountered. But again, we know a lot. We've got a great team on board, and again, we really feel that the geology is adequate for us to construct a tunnel through the straits. Again, as John and others have mentioned, it has been studied or discussed quite a bit back in 2023 as part of the Michigan Public Service Commission.
All right, thank you both. Does EGLE consider performance history of the applicant when considering an application?
You know, the short answer is no. I mean, we're required under the statute to review the applications that get submitted to us regardless of the applicant. We're going to review those applications against the statutory criteria that are applicable. And, you know, to ensure that if a project does move forward to permitting, it meets all the applicable rules and regulations.
All right, thank you, Kyle. All right, are there precedents for this type of project against which we're measuring the application and proposed procedures? Where else has this been done?
So when we do review an application, we do look at site-specific areas, again, with in terms of wetland impact or Great Lakes bottomland impact. We're looking at what's present there currently and what's being proposed to be done, the purpose of that project as well. And so our review revolves around that. In terms of the tunnel itself, once again, that's not under review for this application. I'm unsure if Enbridge has looked at other tunnels as well. It sounds as though they do have quite a few experts that know quite a bit about tunneling, but once again, that's not currently under this review. If Enbridge or others would like to add to that, please do.
Well, this is Paul from Enbridge again. I mean, the tunnel technology is incredible nowadays, and I think many of us are using transportation tunnels, which are highway tunnels, right? As an example, the one that I think most people are aware of is actually connects the United Kingdom to mainland France. It's right under the English Channel. So again, I think we are very familiar with tunnels in the world all over for satisfying our transportation needs.
Okay, thank you for answering that question. Before I move on to the next one, just want to say again, just to reiterate, we're trying to get around to everyone who has a question. So if you have a question and it was answered and you have another question and your hand is raised again and we've already called on you, please be patient. We'll get to you once we get to everybody. There are 94 people on the phone currently, just so everyone is aware. So next question, what sensitive species live, migrate through, or nest, in the case of birds, in the affected wetlands?
Yeah, so our review does include considering what impacts might occur to specifically threatened and endangered species, as well as the overall impact to habitat, the environment, and so on. And so currently, and maybe Anne can talk a little bit more about our review for the threatened and endangered species in the area. There's 2 known plant species on the north side that are proposed to have impact, and some of that process is actually with the Department of Natural Resources and not with EGLE. And if you have maybe some additional insight on the threatened and endangered species in the area.
Sure, I'll just add that as part of our normal process for reviewing applications like this, we do coordinate with state and federal agencies responsible for regulations over threatened and endangered species. So that includes DNR Wildlife Division and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So we coordinate with them on the proposed application and address any comments or concerns they have in making our decision. We currently don't have, that process is ongoing. It has just started. We're sort of in the beginning phase of reviewing the application. So that coordination with those agencies is ongoing at this time.
All right. Thank you. How do these permits relate to previously issued EGLE permits?
Yeah, so I may have mentioned it earlier. All of our application reviews are brand new review, and so we do certainly build up a large amount of permits every year where we're applying the same statute. Whether we issue a permit or not is under most circumstances unrelated to other permits that are at play. And so we review all over the state for large and small projects, and this current application is a review of its own that we're looking at independent of other permits that may or may not have been issued.
All right, thank you. I think we'll go to some raised hands. Laura Judge, we are going to unmute you and allow you to ask your question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, well, first off, I just wanted to say I'm a little disappointed in the audio quality coming from Enbridge, and I wish they would have made a little more effort to have good audio quality so that we could understand what they're saying. And maybe this was spoken to in one of the couple questions back, but I'm a little concerned with on the north side with the wetlands, with disrupting bird migration paths. And it sounds like that kind of thing is going to be studied by the DNR perhaps, and really hasn't been completed yet.
What is that your question, Laura?
Yes. I mean, are you taking into consideration the bird migration paths and the bird habitat there in the wetlands, and then also the surrounding area?
Okay, thanks for your question, Laura.
Right. So
Yeah,
I'll
jump in really quick because so a lot of the questions are going in a particular direction. So I just want to point a couple things out. So, I mean, the short answer to your question, Laura, is yes, absolutely. That's those issues are all part of the review. But I also just wanted to jump in to kind of mention that what's in front of us right now is an application. Just a couple weeks ago, we determined that application was complete, but that doesn't mean that we have done the technical review yet, or that we've done that verification, or we're in this public comment period. And so we're still in this period where we're reviewing the application. We haven't made any determinations yet. We're going out and seeking public input. And so that's exactly what we, there's a lot of questions and things going on here, but that's exactly what we're trying to do, is gather information right now and complete our technical review on the application. So all of that stuff is still upcoming. And so I don't want folks to be disappointed if we don't have answers to every question right now, because we're in the process of doing that assessment.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Jared. All right, I'm going to go back to a couple more in the Q&A box, because I don't think we've got to a few people, and then I think we can start making our rounds of people who have additional questions. All right, let's see here. Is there a place where we can go to see the results of Enbridge's geological research?
So the whole application and all the documents are on our My Enviro website. And so we have a site map explorer. If you were to use a search engine and look up for My Enviro, that's MIENVIRO, is at Michigan Environment site map explorer. You would be able to find it. There are a large number of documents within there. The current submission is in there. It should be towards the top with the submission number that we had on the slide. I believe we'll have it on a slide later as well. And there is that report from earlier that we've been mentioning within that submission as well. So the entire submission can be found online, and that can be reviewed and looked at by anyone from the public.
All right. Thank you, John. A couple more in the Q&A, and then we'll go back to the raised hands. Many of us are still haunted by the Kalamazoo River spill. Do you share that worry?
But I mean, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, we certainly take any spill, especially as one as significant as the oil spill that took place in Kalamazoo 15 years ago, seriously. And, when we're working through a permit application, we are giving consideration to measures that we can build into a permit that would avoid something like that from happening again. That's not exactly what we're reviewing these applications for, but it is a consideration that we take seriously. And yeah, I don't know, Jared, if you have anything to add to that.
No, that was good. I mean, obviously we would be very concerned about that. In fact, Kyle and myself were staff that were at times, I think, involved in that response, and that was obviously devastating. And that's why we want to do a thorough review here and make sure we get this right. And yeah.
All right. Thank you both. If inclement weather interrupts the construction of the intake structure, will any stoppage potentially release construction materials into the surrounding land's waters?
That'd be a good question for Enbridge. Paul, there's been quite a few comments that it's been difficult to hear you, so I don't know if maybe there's somebody else from the Enbridge team that could.
Yeah, how's this, Kyle? I
that's a lot
switched my
better.
mic input, so hopefully this works. Apologize, I must have a headset was going out.
Sounds much better.
Better, thank you. If I recall, the question is related to the intake structure, and I would assume ice or freezing. And as described by John earlier on in the application phase, we're proposing a small or a short HDD to drill below the lake bed and then get out to a deep enough depth of water, so we don't have to worry about ice conditions, which may be prevalent in the upper 3 to 4 feet only. on the lake. So again, because of the intake structure being located out in several feet of water, we don't feel that freezing and whatnot would impact the ability for us to appropriate the water as needed to facilitate the construction.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to go to a couple raised hands that we have. All right, Nicole Kiwe-Biber, we're going to unmute you so you can ask another question.
Thank you. So with the tunnel, when that is, you know, ostensibly boring under bedrock, even though, you know, there's you know, not bedrock all the way has been found. I'm just thinking about the vibrations and those impacts, and it seems like a lot of unknowns, and I guess I'm wondering, like, why isn't that part of what's considered impacts on bottomlands, is that there's going to be a lot of disturbance happening. But I don't know, I think I'm just, maybe really what I'm confused about is this permit process that's happening right now, because is it just what Enbridge decided they think is important to put in the permit, and then their experts or representatives are here and they're answering to why what they say is the only thing that should be considered? Because I mean, when is there space for considerations to come in on what it is they're not talking about? For example, the vibrations and those impacts on the bottomland. So I guess it's just hard to know what question to ask, because who's really answering and who really set the process up of what you all can even consider. If it's just them and them answering, it doesn't really reassure people. Thank you.
Yep, thanks for your question.
So yep, I'll take a crack at it, and the team can jump in there too. I mean, I'm sensing the dissatisfaction with the fact that we're, you know, not talking about the pipeline safety and as much about the pipeline construction. And that, I mean, honestly, right or wrong, oversight of this tunnel is in various places in the state and federal government. There's this historical agreement with Enbridge that the state signed. There's a, I'm going to say the name wrong, but there's a Straits Corridor Authority that oversees the tunnel. And so, so what's covered in this permit are, direct impacts to the bottomlands of the Great Lakes, and then to the wetlands on the coastal side. And so, just because this permit isn't necessarily considering the tunnel boring impacts and those things, doesn't mean that that's not part of those reviews somewhere else. The one thing that I would say is that if there was some other type of disturbance, whether that's from vibrations or some other construction activity, that would not be authorized under the permit. If there was additional impacts to bottomlands. So it's, if a permit is issued, it will be very specific about where and what is allowed to be impacted. And so it would be in Enbridge's interest to identify all of the impacts that might or could happen, because if there were, additional impacts to wetlands or additional impacts to the Great Lakes bottomlands, they would be in violation of any permit that was issued. So yeah, I don't know if there's anyone else that wants to add to that, or if Paul wants to jump in as well.
No, Jared, I think from the EGLE side, that was spot on. Is we review the entire application, request more information that we feel we need to understand the full scope of the impacts, and whether that's a direct impact or even possible secondary or cumulative impacts that might occur. The statute does have sections for that. And so I think Jared was spot on. And Paul, if you wanted to address vibrations that have been studied,
Sure.
you're welcome to.
Sure. Again, thanks, John. This is Paul with Enbridge. I think just to try to maybe for folks to understand a little bit better, the tunnel boring machine, only the rotating head only turns about 3 to 4 revolutions per minute. So this is not a high speed, highly dynamic, fast moving piece of equipment, if you will, as it makes its journey across the strait. So maybe just to put that in perspective, it's a very slow rotating cutter head, which excavates and removes the rock as it makes its way across. So just a little bit there. I do know the Corps of Engineers, who did a federal environmental impact statement on the project, and the draft was out for public comment in June, did take a hard look at vibration and analysis and what that means. So I guess I would refer you, Nicole, to that document if you're interested in learning more about the vibration assessments that have been historically done. And I know during prior feasibility assessments, the modeling that we've done to indicate, again, and the only part where vibration it could even be a possibility to the bottomlands is right near the entrance, so as close to the south shore as possible, and the north shore, as the machine kind of comes close to the ground surface as it starts its journey, and then as it's retrieved on the north side. So again, it's a concern. It's been addressed. It's been thoroughly studied. And again, I believe the draft EIS states that really it's not even discernible the type of vibration that would be encountered again near those near shore locations wouldn't even be perceptible to humans or most benthic critters that might be there in the lake. Thanks.
I'd like to just maybe quick pop on as well and say that I think we'll work on getting a link or something in the chat here of the MDOT review of some of these questions from January of 2021 as well, to show that the state of Michigan has also reviewed the scenario back 4 years ago as well. And we have a similar, if not the same diameter and tunnel boring machine proposed now.
Yeah. Yeah, and at the risk of talking too much here, I mean, these are all perfectly valid public comments and public questions that come in. And so while we're not, I mean, what we're here today to do is try and answer questions, and some of them we have answers to and some we don't. But that's what this public notice process is for. And so I'm hearing all kinds of really valid public comments. And so, please, whatever route you use to submit them, please submit them. Every one of them will be reviewed. So.
All right, thank you. Thank you all for providing that info and input. Just a reminder for those of you who are calling in on the telephone, if you want to ask a question, you can do so by raising your hand in Zoom using your telephone. You just need to select #2. And what that will do is raise your hand in Zoom, and we'll call on you using the last 4 digits of your phone number, just so you are aware. I don't have any other raised hands at the moment. I'm going to go back to the Q&A box, and we're getting kind of to the point in the evening where there's some repetition in some of these questions, and they have been touched on, but maybe not in a certain way. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and read these off, and I guess if you have anything to add, please let me know and answer as best you can, and we'll just try to make sure we're getting to these comprehensively, even though I think we've already talked about a lot of the stuff that's in these questions. So this one says, currently no government agency has comprehensively looked at the tunnel. Can we count on EGLE to do your due diligence and review the entire length of the Line 5 tunnel and the tunnel itself during the review process? Like I said, I know you just touched on this, Jared. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, the short answer to that is yes, we will do a very diligent review. I mean, at the end of the day, we have the authorities that the statutes that we're talking about giving us. So we will be very thorough and diligent. Again, review all public comments, review all of the application materials. We have an entire team of people dedicated to working their way, because this is a really important file that there's a lot of public interest in. So yes, we will do our due diligence. Just as I mentioned, not everything about the tunnel is within the purview or within our sort of authority under these statutes.
All right. Thank you, Jared. Where can the public read the details of the disaster recovery plan?
So all of our application documents are online. Part of our review is not necessarily all of the disaster recovery plan. I believe that Enbridge has their disaster recovery plan present and available, but I'm not sure, Paul, if you have a specific document that you could help refer to that was submitted in the application, or if Gina knows of one as well, as there's a number of documents that are present in there.
Yeah, thanks, John. And again, disaster recovery plan isn't nomenclature, I guess, that we're used to using. So as that, there is no document that I'm aware of that is titled that. But again, I'll refer back to our federal pipeline safety regulator, which is the Petroleum or Pipeline Hazardous Material Safety Administration. And they regulate again and make sure that we as an operator are fully able and ready to respond to any leak that might happen, whether it be in the Straits of Mackinac or anywhere along our vast pipeline network here in North America. So again, all of our emergency response capabilities are well understood. We train for that worst case scenario. We have our own people there, again, local in the Straits with various equipment to quickly respond. And then also we have a nationwide network of companies or contractors who specialize in oil recovery and cleanup. So again, depending on what happens, we over respond and make sure that we, stop the flow of oil out of the pipeline to minimize any impact, and then quickly begin any type of recovery to make sure that we can minimize the impact on the environment.
All right, thank you. It says, from other information, it's expected that the excavation slurry will discharge 5 million gallons of wastewater per day into Lake Michigan. What additives are in the slurry besides bentonite? And how exactly does Enbridge propose to contain the bentonite? And again, this may fall under the NPDES process, but anything we want to address or can address. And I saw that Jim put some information in the chat for everybody as well on slurry.
Yeah, I'll take the first part of this question, and then Tarek, I'll refer to you for the bentonite part. So under the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System application that Enbridge submitted back in February, it was indicated that there are going to be additional additives that will be used in the slurry. We're still working with them currently to determine what exactly those additives are going to be. This is kind of outside of the scope of our application review process, but it will be something we'll be considering while we're working on drafting the permit.
And then as far as bentonite clay, it's part of the drilling process. During the operations of the drilling, they will be recycling that material. It'll be used both for drilling and for transport of removed material. And they'll be recycling that bentonite clay and using it, continue to reuse it during the drilling process. There'll be a treatment system set up for the removal of any additives, making sure that the discharge complies with suspended solids requirements, oil and grease requirements, toxicity requirements, and that will be monitored prior to discharge. So all those requirements will be incorporated into the NPDES permit.
Okay.
Thanks, Ryan. If I could just briefly, these the questions with the release, it's really good questions. We appreciate and welcome all the questions. I just want to clarify that any comments made through this submission are for just the review of the wetlands and the bottomlands impacts. And so there is another process that Hannah and Tarek are involved in for the release of these. And I believe there will be public input periods as well for those, but that's not part of what we're reviewing here. But again, the questions are more than welcome.
All right, thank you. Has this type of tunnel ever been built before in this type of current? So this is specifically related to the current in the straits. And then if so, where?
I do not have information like that right off the top of my head. I'm unsure if others have studied or looked at that. So if Enbridge or other EGLE folks would like to respond, please do.
Hi, John. Yeah, this is Paul with Enbridge, and the question about current affecting the tunnel or the construction of the tunnel. Again, the tunnel will be at depth below the bottom of the lake, so there is no currents, if you will, below the bottom of the lake. So we don't believe that's a concern. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hey, Rick, we
yeah.
received a few questions in the chat that I replied to directly, but I see we just received another one I was going to touch on. Someone asked, they said there's indigenous nations that do not want the tunnel to happen, and how is this not a priority? I just wanted to comment on that and assure everyone that it is a priority. We do understand that there are multiple tribes who have very real and significant concerns with the proposed project. And we've been engaging with the tribes through the state's tribal consultation process over the last couple of months. We've had 2 or 3 meetings already, and we have several more consultation meetings with the tribes scheduled out into December. So we are fully committed to communicating with the tribes and trying to understand any questions and concerns that they have with the project. And Ann Garwood is our Water Resource Division's tribal liaison. She might be able to describe that process a little bit better than I did.
No, I think you did a good job, but I'll just add that we do have several meetings, as Kyle mentioned, that are happening with several of the tribes, as well as that we are reviewing materials that have been provided to us to consider in part of this review from some of the tribes. And many of the tribes are planning, I believe, to provide more formal written comments and potentially additional comments, verbally and in other venues. So we will be, considering all of that as part of the tribal consultation process and seriously considering that in the decision-making process for this application.
All right, thanks for addressing that one. I didn't see that come in at the end. And I think this has been answered. Is there a place we can go to see results of Enbridge's geological research? And I believe we talked about that being in the MyEnviro permit application. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Which I believe Jim might have put that in the chat as well.
All right.
A link.
All right, thank you. And I think we've talked about this, about other tunnels. Where has Enbridge done a similar boring at the same distance and depth? Anything to add on that?
I don't know that EGLE will have anything to add on that. We review every application uniquely. And so we are considering very specifically all the impacts proposed under 303 and 325 here that we've discussed before.
All right. Thank you. All right, so next question. The tunnel design fails to meet MI 217 alternatives assessment study criteria, for example, completely within competent bedrock, completely backfilled, sealed with grout cement. Does EGLE consider this in its permit application review?
So yeah, once again, we are not the agency that reviews for pipeline safety or the tunnel construction, all that criteria that might fall under different laws and regulations. And so while we have a lot of concerns that things are just constructed correctly and that things are built to accomplish the purpose that's proposed, some sections of other laws very well might not fall under our review.
All right. Thank you, John. The maintenance of the tunnel, once built, will be on the taxpayer dollar, won't it?
I
Joe-
don't know the
Okay,
answer to
Joe.
that one. I don't know. John, jump in if you do. Yeah, that probably goes back to the agreement with
Right. I was gonna see if Joe or Kyle would like to. I know Joe is knowledgeable of the agreements, if he has that answer specifically, or not right now, or Kyle as well.
Yeah, no, the tunnel, once Enbridge is going to pay for the tunnel to be constructed and maintained, and the state will be leased the tunnel for 99 years, leasing it to Enbridge. So the cost of that will be borne by Enbridge, and perhaps any other utilities that may be in there. I don't know how that will shake out, but.
Okay, thank you. Have you tested the boring machine's mechanisms for filling cracks with the grout in conditions similar to what you would be tunneling through? What would you do if it does not respond in time to a hazard?
Oh,
Yeah.
take that one.
Thanks, Kyle.
Did you defer to me, Enbridge? This is Paul.
Sorry. Yep.
Yep. Sorry, Kyle. So the tunnel boring machine has not been built yet, so it asked about testing. So, but again, before the tunnel boring machine even arrives on the south side of the straits, it will be commissioned, if you will, at the factory that's going to make the machine, to make sure again that all its systems are up, properly working. And once it does begin the tunneling process, there is all kinds of sensors and information that is fed to the control operator, if you will, of the machine, again, to make sure that the ground conditions as it's moving forward are known, and the right setup and operation of the machine is in place in order to continue all the way across the straits. Thanks.
Thank you. Isn't the historical agreement expired? There was some reference and discussion on the historical agreement.
Joe, could you maybe briefly talk about the agreement and maybe the timeline of whether those expire or not?
I'm not clear on what you mean by the agreement. If you're talking about the easement, the 1953 easement, or the tunnel agreement from 2018, and I don't think that had an end date on it. So I don't believe so.
All right, I guess if you ask that question and would like to provide some additional detail on which agreement that is, feel free, and we'll see if we'll try to get to it. And then another question related to that, didn't Whitmer resend it? So again, we're not sure which agreement which is being referred to.
I think that. My understanding is that's the easement. The 1953 easement was contentious, and there was, I believe that's what you would be referring to if you're saying that Whitmer was rescinding the easement from 1953.
Okay, thank you, Joe. All right, we're gonna go to raise hand. Nicole Kiway Biber. We're gonna unmute you and you can ask your question.
Oh, thank you. I have a lot of questions. I appreciate you all letting people have more than one question. So I'm wondering, at what point is EGLE able to consider the presence of methane and the explosion risks that would, absolutely impact bottomlands outside the small area Enbridge included in the permit application? Or, or is that only like under the purview of the Mackinac Corridor Straits Authority that was specifically assembled to, assume that the construction of the tunnel will happen?
Yeah, Nicole. Well, first of all, that's what this is for asking these kind of questions. So don't want you to feel bad about that. And then, yeah, secondly, that's outside Water Resources Division sort of purview and the permit review for this particular permit.
All right. Thank you, Jared. Nicole, if you have other questions, feel free because I don't have any other open questions at the moment or raised hands. So if you have other questions, feel free to ask them. I just want to note that I think this was put in the chat too, that our Mind Virus system is down at the moment if you're trying those links, but it should be back up very soon. Okay, go ahead, Nicole.
Thank you. So that like the methane, the presence of the methane isn't something that could be considered in this permit, even though a risk of explosion would detrimentally impact wetlands and bottomlands?
Right. So again, I don't know the risks, and I don't think anyone on the water side does, or, you know, specifically the technical geological stuff that you're talking to. I think that would be reviewed by the other agencies that are involved. So if we were to issue a permit on this, it would only authorize the impacts that are within there, right? So it would not look at, you know, risk of explosion or those types of other things. That's regulated otherwise. Obviously, that would be an enormous issue, and, you know, we would certainly be involved in that were it to occur. But it's outside the purview of, like, Enbridge has submitted an application to us. Again, I would encourage you to submit it as a comment, and we'll look at it and see. You know, we're going to look at every single comment and say, does this fit within our purview? What the authority that the law gives us, and if so, does our application address it? And if not, ask Enbridge to address it. So I would definitely encourage you to submit any concerns that you have as a comment. But the two statutes involved here are wetlands and Great Lakes bottomlands, and the impacts that Enbridge is proposing to do with construction.
Right. And maybe just to clarify quickly as well, like under Part 303, right, the regulated activities are dredging, filling, draining of surface water, construction of structures, or maintaining a use. And so there are activities that are pretty clear that we're required to regulate. And then outside of those activities, we get outside of what our purview is. And so that's maybe where Jared's getting at with what we do and do not require permits for, and what our application review is for.
This is Paul with Enbridge, if I could jump in.
Please.
Sure, thank you. Understanding the ground conditions, and particularly the methane concern that Nicole has brought up, is really very a parameter that was very well studied during the.
So yeah, sorry, we went ahead, and I think that was coming from Nicole. Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, sorry, thank you. Again, the question about methane presence in the geologic formation has been brought up through all the prior processes associated with this permit, including it was heavily discussed as part of the Michigan Public Service Commission process back in 2023. There is very low levels of methane encountered in a couple of the borings that were done. The way the PSC, if I was kind of looking up their findings, was they really determined that the levels that are there are such very low levels that there's no credible scenario where there'd be enough methane of a high enough concentration in the tunnel to cause an explosion. And of course, you need an ignition source also. But that being said, we do treat the construction process as kind of a what's the best way to describe it? As a potential gaseous environment, right? So as the machine slowly does move forward, there are sensors and monitors in the tunnel to determine if there are any accumulating gases. We don't expect any of any concentration of concern, but again, as the machine moves through, there are sensors in the tunnel to monitor any type of methane that might be accumulating in the tunnel. If there are any concerns, obviously tunnel boring would be stopped and ceased. People would be safely evacuated from the tunnel, and then ventilation would occur, right, to remove those vapors of any harmful level, so we could continue back with work. So I hope that gets a little bit more to the possibility of methane reaching any type of level of an explosion limit in the tunnel.
Yeah, thanks for adding that info, Paul. Appreciate it. If there's anybody has a question, we're starting to wind down a little bit on the questions. Just a reminder to, if you have a question, to type it in the Q&A box, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask it out loud verbally. Or if you're on the phone, you can select #2, which will raise your hand in Zoom. And I also want to let you know that once we get done with the question and answer session, we'll be providing those ways to provide a comment in addition to the hearing next week, and then the hearing information, as well as if you have additional questions, where you can send those to after tonight. So we'll be providing that information as well. All right. Did you have another question, Nicole? I see your hand's up. Are you there, Nicole? All right, I'm guessing maybe she walked away.
Yeah, I'm
Oh, there you are.
I'm sorry, I'll try to have this be the last one. Thank you. So I really appreciate when John did a rundown of things, you all can consider like under the the purview of what you have, and like the what the law says, your authority law. So I mean honestly, I'm a little unsettled that so much of this seems to be coming from Enbridge and like being passed back to them to answer. But from what he said there, I'm wondering like what authority of law is it? Is it the NEPA? Like what is it that is mostly driving what you all are going to be considering as quote minimal impacts or not? Like what law is that? Because it's really hard to have the corporation that's going to profit from this feel so central. So I'm just wanting to know what it is your primary kind of like informing document is as you consider all these issues. Thank you.
No, that's a good question, Nicole. So our review, and John, I'll let John get to this. He can speak to it better than I can, but we're reviewing this under Part 325, which is the Great Lakes Bottomland Statute, and 303, our Wetlands Protection Statute of the NREPA. So we're reviewing this entire proposal, the application we have in front of us, against the statutory review criteria in those statutes specifically. So a lot of what we've been discussing in the last half hour probably falls outside of the purview of those statutes. But those are the two primary statutes that we're reviewing this application against. I don't know if that answered your question or not, Nicole. There's another question that just came in that kind of relates to that. So somebody said, Jared Sanders mentioned in an earlier response that EGLE has determined that the application is complete, but has not yet done a technical review. What kind of considerations go into the determination that the application is complete? That's also a really good question that would be worth touching on for a minute. So when we receive an application, the first step in our process is to determine if that application is administratively complete, which really means we're looking to see if we have enough information from the applicant to make an informed permitting decision. That's the first 30 days of our application review process. So that's where we're at right now. We've determined that there's enough information included in the application for us to understand the project that's being proposed and to start our permit processing or our technical review of whether or not the project meets permitting criteria. So over the next several months, we'll be working on the latter part of that question, which is, can this project be permitted or not under the statute? And we could get into that a little bit more if people have questions about what our review process looks like.
All right, thanks, Kyle. There's another question in here related to, the concerns of the people in making decisions about things related to the Great Lakes. Specifically, are the concerns of the people who care about the Great Lakes, and part of that would be closing Line 5, actually seriously considered when making decisions about things related to the Great Lakes? I guess anything you can speak to on that? Anybody on the line?
Yeah.
This relates to what we can look at in the permit process and input from the public.
Yeah, so and I would welcome the rest of the team to jump in if I miss anything or if there's anything else to unpack there. And so, because I was going to talk about this at the end, so but I might as well do it now with the question there, and that is, so the short answer is yes. We are going to review every public comment that comes in. Work with Enbridge on a responsiveness summary, identify any issues that come in that are related to the permit criteria. And so in these cases, the laws essentially say if you meet the permitting criteria, we have to issue a permit. If it doesn't meet the permitting criteria, we can't. So it's a really narrow window that needs to get hit. But for sure, public comment is a really important part about that. But the side note to that I really did want to talk about was and I don't, hopefully no one takes this negatively, but what public comments are not is a vote on, like, do people want the project or not want the project. And so whether you're supportive of the project or whether you're against the project, really want to encourage you as you're getting ready to public comment, whether that's at the hearing or email or on the My Enviro site, to clearly articulate what your concerns are, and in particular as it relates to Great Lakes bottomlands and wetlands, because a comment that comes in that just says, I don't want this or I don't like it, that doesn't fit into the criteria that we have to look at. So be clear and explicit about what your concerns are when you're taking time. If you're going to take the time to comment and there's tons of interest in this, please take the time to be clear and explicit about what those concerns are, and that will help us do a better job in permitting, and we'll probably identify some things that we haven't seen or thought of.
Yeah, many thanks for that, Jared. I thought it was a good time to put up those other ways to submit, or the ways to submit an official comment. So that's a good segue, and I'm not seeing any other questions that have come up in the Q&A box or any raised hands. So I think we're going to move on. And if you do have a comment, like Jared mentioned, you can submit that through My Enviro. From what I understand, it's back up. So it should be working now if you want to go to those links that are in the chat. Under Submission HQ3-8BYB-N9DT1. And again, the link is in the chat for making your comment. You can also send them by email to EGLE, EGLE, Enbridge, and I should say it's EGLE-Enbridge-public-comments@michigan.gov. So EGLE-ENBRIDGE-PUBLICMENTS@michigan.gov. You can also submit a comment by mail to EGLE, GDO-WRD, PO Box 30458, and that's Lansing, Michigan 48909-7958. And again, the last option on here is at that virtual public hearing, which is a week from today. It'll be the same time, and you can make a comment at that time as well. If you have any further questions that you'd like to ask, you can submit it to the same email address that I read off, but we request that you put the word question in the subject line so that when that email is received, we know that's a question, and we'll make sure we get back to that right away. And again, I'll read that email one more time. It's EGLE-PUBLIC-COMMENTS@michigan.gov. And again, please include question in the subject line. All right, and we're about to wrap things up. I know you mentioned some final comments earlier. Any final comments for us, Jared?
No, I probably talked enough. Other than to say thank you. I know there's tons of interest in this project. I hope that tonight's session was helpful for you, and I see Nicole left a note that we'll see her again next week, and that's what it's for. And so yeah, please take the time to comment, and yeah, thank you, everybody.
All right, yeah, thanks. I'll just leave you with thank you all again for being part of this process, all of our panelists for being here, our Enbridge representatives for answering questions. Last thing is just a reminder that this was recorded. It'll be captioned and put on EGLE's YouTube channel in a few days. I'll try to get it up there as soon as we can, maybe able to have it up tomorrow, just so you're aware in case you want to review it again. And then we'll hope to see you next week at the public hearing that we have. So with that, I hope you all have a great rest of your night. And thanks again.
Thank you.